Hello and welcome to Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. Windsor author Michael Drakich writes speculative fiction. This means his many published novels are not set in the real world, but instead involve supernatural, futuristic, and other imaginative elements. And that certainly is a perfect description of his recent sci-fi robot-themed book, Requiem for Genocide, which won a Reader's View Gold Medal Award for science fiction. And he joins me now to tell us all about his work. Welcome to Scribes and Songsters.
Thank you.
Well, this book was really, really interesting, but I thought, why not tell people a little bit about yourself first?
Well, I mean, as a writer, I've been writing now for about 15 years.
You grew up in Windsor?
I did. My family was, my father was Mike Drakich of the Top Hat Supper Club. And I grew up in Old Walkerville, and that's where I live today, back in Old Walkerville again. I'm a homeboy there. So, yeah, I've been in Windsor all my life. Professionally, I'm a realtor, been selling real estate for 43 years. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is my daughter, Brooke, and then 2 sons, Miles and Eric, who are all in their 30s now. So they're no longer kids anymore. They're adults, but you know how it goes.
So when did you start writing? When did you realize that you had that in you?
Well, you know, I've always been an avid reader. So I always read 1 book, 2 books, 3 books a month, depending upon the books, because some are longer than others. Mm-hmm. And about 15 years ago, I picked up this book, and I'm not going to name the author, but it was from a very popular fantasy series. So I read it. Now, I have a rule. I start a book, I finish the book, whether I like it or not. It was terrible. The thing was very long-winded, and I just generally thought it was poor. Okay, fine. I have my TV box at home. I'm flicking through channels. His books have been made into a TV series. I said, you have got to be kidding me. That crap is now a TV series. I said, if that can make it to a TV series, anybody can do this. So I sat down and started writing. It was on February 12th, 2008.
Well, it was obviously a pivotal date for you.
Yes. And I sat there for the next 10 months and fleshed out a epic fantasy novel of about 115,000 words. Showed it to my friends and family, who all went kind of, yeah, okay. And I realized, well, maybe I'm not that good. So I've got to up the game, right? Mm-hmm. I joined a writers group in Michigan, and I used to go across every 2 weeks and meet with this writers group and go through everything to try and improve my writing. Started working on my next novel in the meantime, and then I joined an online writers group called thenextbigwriter.com and was doing stuff online with them all the time. And then my second book, I finished it, which is a sci-fi novel called Grave as a Day. It's a alternative history science fiction. And sent it out. Small publisher picked it up, published the book. I said, wow. Okay, definitely a lot better start than the first novel was, which was put away on the shelf, you know. And just kept going from there. Now, mind you, the small publisher really didn't do much. We ended up parting ways. I went back the first novel and I rewrote it based upon my education. And then every time I write a novel, I keep trying to take the next step forward as being an author, which is no more small publishers. I've done the small publisher game. They really don't do a lot for you. You got to do everything yourself. They don't get you into the stores. You know, so what good are they, right? Outside of taking, you know, a bulk of the profit.
That's right.
Yeah. So I said, I want a big publisher. Well, there's only 5 in the whole world. The whole world, 5. Mm-hmm. So they don't talk to authors.
Mm-mm.
They only talk to agents.
Correct.
So every novel I wrote, I send it out, try and get an agent to pick it up, send off 60, 70, 80 requests. I get about 20 or 30 replies. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
You're lucky you even get a reply.
Well, two-thirds don't bother me.
No.
You know, I got to writing this book. I said, I'll try something new. I'm going to start entering my books in contests. Maybe I can get some readership and some creds from contests. So I entered Requiem for Genocide into 15 different contests, which of course is money, right? 5 awards out of 15 entries, a gold medal, a silver, and 3 bronzes.
Congratulations.
So the book, great response. It's got like a 4.6 out of 5-star rating on Amazon, which, and I mean, anything over 4 is great. This is 4.6. So I think my work is good, but the sales, they're still not really happening.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep going, though, right?
Yep.
I mean, you never know which is the one that's going to open the door.
No, you don't. And so let's talk about Requiem for Genocide.
Yes.
Give us a brief synopsis, because I've got so many things I want to ask you about it. Without giving too much away, give us a brief synopsis.
Well, I mean, the blurb that's on the book, of course, which is that kind of brief synopsis, which plain and simple is the storyline, the main character. It's told in first person present tense, which, by the way, most novels are told in third person past tense because that's kind of what people are used to. And that's what, as a reader, you're used to. So I made this transition, not on this novel, but on one a couple back, of I wanted to try and elevate my game by introducing a different writing style of first person present tense. And so the whole story is told from the point of view of a robot. And his name is JAK-037, but everybody calls him Jack for short.
Tell me about Jack.
Jack's not just any kind of robot, though. Jack's a war bot built for one purpose, to kill the enemy. He's got forearms, he's got lasers, knives that are built into his system. He's a tough son of a gun, and he is the oldest of his type. He's the last JAK model left. There's some JBKs, JCKs, and on.
How did you come up with all these sort of names?
Well, the JAK was a case of wanting an easy transference from a robot name of JAK-037 to Jack. And then the other ones were just, different models as you went going forward. And I liked Jack. I don't know why. It just appealed to me as a name. I mean, it's one of those things that you want people to have names that they can easily remember as readers. One of the things as I told you, I'm an avid reader. I get some of these old sci-fi books or these old fantasy books, and the names, I can't even pronounce it. It's like, how am I going to remember who's who when all these names are so odd and weird, So I set a rule in my head, all characters, 2 syllables at the most, and easy to read, so that the readers will remember.
I found that even when he was the warbot, you rooted for him.
Of course. He's my hero.
Yeah.
You want the hero to win. But obviously, there's going to be some trials along the way, and that's how the story goes, where he has all his trials, some of them very severe, especially the fact when at the point, I don't know how many details of the book we want to give away.
Well, we can, don't give away the ending. That's the main thing.
But yes, I think a major detail is that he gets in a fight that damages his battery, which means he's no longer to receive an energy recharge. He's got 21 days to live. After that, his battery will run out and Jack is dead.
I also thought it was interesting that you talked to the bots.
Well, the bots all have a magnetic resonance body shield, which deflects what we call it, fast projectiles and laser beams, and those things are all deflected by this body shield. But a slow attack,
when they're brawling,
when you're brawling, for example, his knife, which is built into his hand, when he can stab that into somebody on a slow attack, it penetrates through that magnetic resonance shield, and he's able to damage them. Of course, he usually goes for wherever their memory core is, like in their head or whatever.
Yeah. So tell us about the world they live in.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's not on Earth. The story's told on a different planet with different aliens, and he's actually been built to serve these other aliens who, as the story progresses, on the planet is a colony of Earth human settlers. And the aliens decide that they want to go to war with the humans. So he has to fight the humans, which he's worried about because they're technologically superior. But he's and of course, I do my best to try and follow along with some of the science fiction lore that is standard Isaac Asimov's three laws of robotics, right? So for those that don't know them, the robot is three laws. He must protect any human from harm. He must take actions to preserve his own life, but not at the cost of any humans. And so he follows those laws where he has to follow any rule that's given to him, any order that's given to him. But Jack gets a little cagey in his old age. Mm-hmm. And so it's a matter of interpretation.
And there was something, there was a statement about robots crave free will.
Yes, because the robotic laws don't give them free will. So if one of their creators comes to them and says, I want you to kill yourself.
Then you do.
You do. Yeah.
But I was thinking as well, do we want robots to have free will?
This is a big thing that you in the media right now with AI. Everybody's frightened of AI. I mean, all you got to do is watch movies like The Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and all of that stuff where AI is out to destroy mankind. I think we're still a very long way away from real cognitive independence for AI. I mean, they call it AI, but it's not like you see in the movies. So I'm not really worried about it yet.
Now, what's interesting is that he acquires free will.
He does, which is his freedom to go forward and do something that would be against all his rules. So in his travels and in his combats, he actually comes across a 7-year-old human girl. He was, and at that time he was still under the laws, but like I say, Jack was, he was all about interpretation, right? And his instructions were to kill everybody at that building that worked there. Everyone that worked there. Well, he goes in, he pulls a little girl out of the closet and says very directly, do you work here? And she says, no, I'm only 7 years old. So he was able to ignore that instruction because she didn't work here. And he decided he was going to save her and return her to her people. And that began his quest and his mission.
Now there's an antagonist,
Commander
Beto.
Yes. Well,
a charmer.
Yes. Well, Beto, of course, is one of those individuals that has zero respect for the robots. He actually orders any older robot not to be repaired because he doesn't want them anymore. He wants new ones. So if you're old and you get hurt, you get damaged, go down to repairs, you don't come back. You get turned off. And that's it's in Jack's eyes, That's genocide.
Absolutely. And I found it really interesting that he's a robot, but the robots develop what we humans would consider friendship.
Oh, yes, very close. And they had their ways of bonding, the touching of the foreheads, for example. So because the sound of the mechanics inside their head, when they touch heads, it resonates back and forth, and it's a bonding thing between them. And they're like brothers. And they care for each other. They all want to survive. They don't want to be sent to some endless war and dying on the battlefield. And they will. But because of the robotic laws, they're stuck. Right. They got to get free of those laws.
And then there were the people. Were they the Dalreams?
Yes.
Dalreams. The friend who he trusted to fix him up.
His old repairman boss who retired.
Right.
Right. He was a guy who sympathized with the robots. He was the chief repairman for years. Then he retired. He was just living at home as a retired old man. And Jack, the only time Jack had any problems, Jack would, rather than go to repairs where he feared that he wouldn't come out,
right,
he'd go visit his friend to deal with those problems. And so there's a relationship there.
There was such a personification of these, one would think, non-thinking, non-sentient things, but you really sort of got to see their personalities.
Well, one of the things in writing is you want the reader to emote with the main character. And so if you can't get that to happen, you're going to lose the reader. The reader has to, in a certain way, imagine themselves as that character. They want to put themselves in that position, and they want to cheer for that character. And I use the word emote, but there's that kind of bond between the reader and that main character. And so you have to develop that, and that's with, all the internal thoughts, all the thinking that's going on, all the questioning that's going through Jack's mind as he's going through all of this. And the reader reads all these things and gets a real in-depth feeling towards that character so that they're able to strongly bond and emote with that character. And that's what you want to do as a writer. And
you certainly get sort of taken into his relationship with the little 7-year-old.
Oh, it starts slow and it works its way up, and I have to tell you, one of the hardest things, of course, as a writer is how do I write the dialogue and actions of a 7-year-old girl when I am a older gentleman, right? I'd rather get my age up, but so obviously I've never experienced life at any point of being a 7-year-old girl. So you've got to really try and figure it out. And that's where, I bounce things off of people, such as my girlfriend Sharon and others to try and say, does this sound like a 7-year-old girl? Do you think a 7-year-old girl would say that? Do you think that this would be the reaction of a 7-year-old girl when Jack puts a bloody tooth in her hand? Things like that.
Well, you got good advice because the dialogue worked.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the hard part whenever you're trying to, give the characterization of somebody that really, in all honesty, I have no experience of. Yeah. I have a daughter. I remember when she was 7 years old, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of research on robots?
Well, I'm an avid reader, like I told you, for one thing. But I'm also an avid fan of certain scientific television shows. So, through the wormhole, for example, or how the universe works, or these other science channels, the NASA Space Channel I'll watch the NASA Space Channel for an hour to see what's going on. So those kind of things, they give you somewhat of an insight to, what's going on in that branch of science to, give you a certain feel for it. And of course, like I say, I'm a big sci-fi fan. I've seen every science fiction movie ever made practically. So
were you always a sci-fi fan?
Oh yes, ever since I was a kid. To this day, my favorite science fiction movie of all time is the original 1951, not the terrible remake in 2012. The original 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still. That's a classic.
Yes.
Gort as a robot is my favorite robot of all time. And I think that that still resonates today. You know, the whole mankind and threatening the Earth and them coming along saying, you know, you guys are a problem. So those kind of things, yeah, they stick with you, you know. And like I say, I've seen them all, read all the sci-fi books that I can over the years, and so you develop a real groundwork in your head of what's out there, what people expect, what the marketplace is, because you know they say to authors is that authors tend to write the first book they write for themselves. But after that, they realize and they write for everybody else. So you have to keep writing to where you get to the stage where you're writing for others, not just for yourself. You know, and so that's one of the things you have to. It's all part of the growing stage of being an author.
Is there a character you like best?
Oh no favorites.
Really?
Yeah. I get asked all the time, "What's your favorite novel?" No, sorry. They're all my children. They're all equal. They're all even. I love them all.
That's a rarity because most authors form somewhat of a bond with one of their characters.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I know that there are certain characters look, when you write, obviously, to a certain amount, my own personal attitudes come through in some of these characters. You know, so obviously, some of them to a certain degree. They represent me, but I don't pick favorites.
Well, do you have one you don't like or like least?
No, even my bad guys, I like them because they came out the way I wanted them to. You know, if I didn't like it, then there's something wrong in what I've done in creating that character that it doesn't work. And you know, science fiction, like anything, not everybody's perfect. Right? So you're going to have faults in your main characters. You're going to have good things in your bad characters. You know, back in the 60s when the science fiction was huge, golden age, you know, science fiction and everything else. And guys like Asimov, who I mentioned, Heinlein, and all the others, who were writing all kinds of science fiction. Or if you go back to the real golden age back in the 30s, where some of my favorite authors like E. Doc Smith and everything else, it's all action. Right? It's all action. They really never got into the character development, right? It was all about move the story, you know? We'll talk for a couple seconds about what's going through somebody's mind, but keep the story moving. That's changed. Today, you need to be more of a literary science fiction writer, where you're providing that in-depth appeal of the characters because, you know, it's the way it's evolved.
Often, when you're writing, you decide on a track and sort of this is where you're going to take your characters, and then they surprise you and they go off in a different direction. Does that happen to you?
You know, there's what they call two different styles of writing, right? There's the plotters and the pansters. I don't know if you know these terminologies or not. So the plotter is a guy or gal who sits down and by point form plots out the entire book and then starts writing it on the you know the point marks that he's got. He writes his chapters and everything else through that plot. The panster sits down, has an idea, starts writing it, and lets it take him wherever it's going. You know, so where am I? I'm kind of a little bit of each, more panster than plotter. But generally speaking, when I come up with a novel idea, for example, that one, how that all started, I'm sitting out in my backyard in the middle of winter, having a cigar in the snow with a buddy of mine, and my left knee was hurting, was bugging me. I heard it playing touch football where I got tackled. And that's history, but the bottom line is my knee was bothering me that day. And from my knee bothering me, while we're having that cigar for a couple of hours outside in the snow, the whole concept of the novel came to my head of an old robot suffering ailments, unlike you and I. I mean, yes, the opening line of the book is, my left knee is bugging me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's a great opening line.
yes. So it just went from there of, people, when we have problems, we go to doctors, we get healed. Robots, they got to go to the repair, but what if repair won't do it, right? And so this is how it goes, is that his body, different things throughout the story, continues to fail and fail and fail to the point where he's right at the end. Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I need to ask you, are you working on another book right now?
I just finished writing another novel.
Wow. What's it called?
It's called The Gilgamesh Path. So
okay, well, we'll hold that thought.
Okay.
Because time to go.
All right.
And where can people get your book?
Right now, all my books are available online at any site that sells books online.
Okay.
But if you want to pick up a hard copy right now, you can go down to Storytellers on Ottawa Street, and they're all there.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, one thing I can say for sure, the time in which we live makes stories like Requiem for Genocide probably more possible than ever before. That's a chilling thought, I think. Now it's time to go. A big thank you to our Scribes and Songsters team, producer Brian Sweet, technical producer and editor Gary Glass. Grateful thanks to Tony Toldo and the Toldo Foundation, and to Neil and Tina Queering for their ongoing support. We really appreciate it. Special thanks to you for watching. Hope to see you soon, right back here on Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. Bye for now.